Hey, it's James Nicholson, I hope you're well. Now, we're going to talk today about how to use the equity that you've got in your property to be able to buy future properties. Now, this video is in a bit of a different location, just here in Bangkok in Thailand at the moment, actually at a conference just over there on marketing. And so I'm always investing in training myself because I think that gives you real shortcuts. Now, before we jump into this content, I want you to help me grow this YouTube channel. And one thing that can help me is firstly, smash the like button over there. That'll take 2 seconds, smash that like button. And also subscribe to the channel, guys. We're on our journey to 5,000 subscribers here. We've got 3,000 already in record time, which is absolutely incredible. And we want to get to 5,000, so smash that subscribe button and hit the bell notification. Now, I started out property investing in 1999, and I bought a property really through necessity. Now, my parents, my dad is dead and my mother is an alcoholic and actually lives in a mental home, and I didn't really have anything to fall back on, and I moved out at 16 years old and rented for a few years and just saw rent as dead money. You see, paying rent was expensive and I was making somebody else wealthy. Now, I wanted to get on the property ladder, and I read a few different property books, not the ones that you might think a lot of people read, Rich Dad Poor Dad. I have read that more recently, but it was an Australian book, and it was all about property investing and how a guy took one property and turned that into hundreds of properties, and it was really, really interesting on how he did that. That made me decide that I wanted to at least get my own first property. I hope you can hear with that train going around in the background. And so yeah, I wanted to get my first property, which I did in 1999. I bought a studio apartment in Dorking in Surrey for £45,000 with a £3,000 deposit. At that time, I was just working in Burger King. And now, some of you might say, well, look, if you lived in Dorking, you couldn't afford that if you worked in Burger King now. So maybe not, but what you can do is you can still get property for £45,000 in other areas of the country and allow that to build up an equity. So what I'm going to share with you might not be the first property that you live in, but you could buy a property at a discounted rate somewhere more affordable in the country. I'm sure you'd agree with that, right? And so I bought that property in 99 for £45,000, and it was in an okay state, wasn't particularly much value I could add to it. I didn't think, at least at the time. But what did happen is time, right? So during the next few years, prices went up, and about 5 years later, what I did is I had the property revalued, and the property was valued at close to £100,000. Now, I then looked at moving out of the property, and so then I could put it on a buy-to-let mortgage, and they will lend you then 75% of the value of the property. I was on originally a repayment mortgage, so I'd already paid off some of the debt, and I was able to pull out a good chunk of money, tens of thousands, around £30,000 of the equity I was able to release, and I keep that in my pocket, and then I'd have a higher interest rate. Then I had a tenant that moved in and started paying me rent, which was above whatever the mortgage payment plan was back then. I can't actually recall what it was right now. But that meant that I was making money, right? So I was paying a mortgage, let's just say it was 500 quid, and a tenant was paying me 750. But I was making a profit each and every month, which is where we want to be, right? So then I also had £30,000 in my bank, which I then used to go and buy a property down in Hastings, in Kent, in Sussex, sorry. And so the property in Hastings is a 1-bedroom property. I still own that today. All my properties I decided to keep. And now I had 2 properties going up in value, which was really, really good. So a few years later, I revalued both the properties. They'd both gone up in value. And then I was able to release equity to be able to then buy a house in Hastings, a 3-bedroom house, which I still own to this day. And so this is something I discovered, that time is on your side. And as time goes on, house prices will always go up. There'll always be blips, right? There'll be house prices going down like they did in 2008, which they did for me, but they'll always go up in the long run. And that's a great thing, and that means eventually, over time, you'll be able to release more equity and buy more properties and be in a better financial situation. Now, what I didn't know at the time, and wasn't shared with me in the book that I initially bought, was that you can shorten the time that it takes for the price to go up. Let's give you an example of how I've just recently done that. So I've got a daughter called Georgia. She's 21, going on 22 in a couple of weeks, and she has, well, between her and myself, we bought her a property in Doncaster. We bought it at auction for £60,000, and then the property was a complete mess, right? Absolute mess. And so we were able to add value to that property. And that's what you want to be looking for, is properties that you can add value to. And when you can add value to the property, then the price will obviously go up. So we refurbished that property. We put a kitchen in from B&Q. We got a bathroom from a local bathroom shop. And we did new carpets with a local carpet fitter. We got it fully plastered and decorated for only £6,500 for the labour, and around another £5,500 for materials. It's very, very cheap, but very decent quality as well. And I've actually got a video on this channel. If you want to check it out, you can actually see what the property was like when I bought it and what it was like when after I refurbished it. And I'm sure you'll agree, we made it a lot better than it started out, right? So we now have refurbished the property. So is it worth more money? Well, it's not my opinion that matters, it's the valuer's opinion that matters. So we had a valuer come round and they looked round the property for us, and they valued the property at £100,000. Now we'd spent around £75,000 buying the property and doing it up. £60,000 to buy it, 15 or so for stamp duty, legals, doing it up. Around those sorts of numbers, right? So we're roughly in for 75,000. Now the good thing is, it's now valued at 100,000, which means that we're able to get a 75% mortgage, which means the bank will lend us 75. They give us that 75, we've now recouped all of the money that we've invested into that property, and now we can go again. And this is using equity, but reducing the period of time between that. We call that strategy the buy, refurbish, refinance strategy. In COVID times, I did a couple of other deals like this. So remember the first flat that I bought? Well, that first studio flat that I bought, in COVID, I converted it into a one-bedroom flat. Now that cost peanuts to do. It was £5,000. I didn't have to change the bathroom, didn't have to change the kitchen. It was easy job to get done. Some plastering, some decorating, with carpets, and it was done for £5,000. It added £50,000 in value. We're just currently going through that process of releasing a huge chunk of equity from that. It's actually going to be closer to about 90,000 that I get out of that, because I don't want to over leverage that property. I want to have like a fairly decent amount of equity in there still, just to have that one property that isn't like really leveraged. So now I'm going to pull that money out to be able to do some more deals. I've got another house, flat in Dorking that was a one-bedroom flat, very big one-bedroom flat lined. The living room was 45 feet, so I sectioned off half the living room, made it into a big bedroom. I've still got a huge living room and a decent kitchen, and that property was valued at £280,000. We bought that for 160. And so this is what you need to look at, is how can you add value? Because when you can add value, you can create equity in your property that you can then pull out and use on other deals. And that's how you get really good at property investing. And that's how you can really expedite your results. Time, that also works. That worked for me initially. But now when I want to work with time, I want to basically be recycling my money as fast as I can. So that's what I do, and that's how you can too. Refinance your property, release some equity, and take your property business to the next level. What do you think about this story? Are you interested in learning property? Because we're going to be running a live property event very soon. In the description of this video is going to be a link where you can grab a ticket to our live event in central London. So if you put in your details there, do like the video, guys. That helps me on YouTube. Do subscribe and hit the bell. I hope you could hear this video and it wasn't too loud. Obviously, we're in Bangkok, but it's a little more interesting. Maybe you saw some interesting stuff going on in the background while you're watching this video. Let me know. That's it from me. Sorry it's a bit shaky. My arm is now aching. I will put this down and I'll see you guys in the next video right here.